Imagine a place where forests, rivers, and wildlife once covered the land. A place where there were no skyscrapers, no Times Square, no subway, and no Statue of Liberty. Today, that same place is one of the most recognizable cities on Earth, New York City. But how did a small settlement on Manhattan Island transform into a global metropolis of millions? This is the extraordinary evolution of New York City. Long before skyscrapers filled the Manhattan skyline, the region was home to the Lenape people. For thousands of years, indigenous communities lived throughout the area that is now New York City. They hunted, fished, farmed, traded, and traveled through a landscape of forests, rivers, wetlands, and islands. Manhattan itself was part of the Lenape homeland, often referred to as Lenapoking. The landscape was dramatically different from what we see today. Instead of concrete streets and towering buildings, there were forests, streams, rocky hills, and open land. Then, in 1609, a ship sailed into the region. Its captain was Henry Hudson, working for the Dutch. Hudson explored the harbor and sailed up the river that would eventually carry his name. The natural harbor was extraordinary. It offered access to the Atlantic Ocean and an enormous inland river system. The location had the ingredients for a great trading center. And soon, European colonization began. In 1624, Dutch settlers established a permanent settlement in the region. A few years later, Fort Amsterdam was established on the southern tip of Manhattan. The settlement became known as New Amsterdam. It was small compared with today's New York. There were only a few streets, wooden buildings, farms, trading houses, and defensive structures. But its location made it valuable. Ships could enter the harbor. Merchants could trade goods. Furs, timber, food, and other products moved through the settlement. New Amsterdam gradually became a multicultural trading community. But this growth also came with colonization, displacement of indigenous peoples, and the forced labor of enslaved Africans. By the middle of the 17th century, New Amsterdam had developed enough to receive municipal rights. The small trading settlement was becoming a real city. Then everything changed. From New Amsterdam to New York. In 1664, English forces took control of New Amsterdam. The Dutch settlement was renamed New York after the Duke of York. The city's identity began to change. English influence grew, but New York continued to attract people from different parts of Europe, Africa, and the Americas. Its harbor became one of its greatest advantages. Ships arrived with goods, immigrants, and ideas. New York continued expanding northward from Lower Manhattan. During the American Revolution, the city became strategically important. British forces captured New York in 1776, and the city remained under British occupation until the end of the Revolutionary War. After independence, New York entered a new era. For a short period, it even served as the capital of the newly formed United States. But the city's biggest transformation was still ahead. Chapter 4: The Explosion of the 19th Century. During the 1800s, New York began changing at an incredible speed. The population exploded. Immigrants arrived from Ireland, Germany, Italy, Eastern Europe, and many other regions. They came looking for work, opportunity, and a new life. Neighborhoods became increasingly diverse. Factories, shops, warehouses, banks, theaters, and apartment buildings spread across Manhattan. Infrastructure transformed the city. The Erie Canal, completed in 1825, connected New York Harbor with the Great Lakes and helped make New York a major commercial center. Then came another revolution: transportation. Railroads, ferries, elevated trains, bridges, and eventually subways allowed people to travel farther and faster. In 1883, the Brooklyn Bridge opened. It was more than a bridge. It was a symbol of a city entering the modern industrial age. And in 1886, another symbol arrived: the Statue of Liberty. Standing in New York Harbor, it became an enduring symbol of immigration and freedom. But New York was still not the city we know today. Until the end of the 19th century, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island were not all part of one unified city. Then came one of the biggest political transformations in New York's history. On January 1st, 1898, the five-borough structure of modern New York City was created through consolidation. Manhattan was joined with Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island. The result was enormous. New York suddenly became a city covering hundreds of square miles and containing millions of people. The modern New York City had been born. Now the city was ready to build upward. Chapter 6: The Age of Skyscrapers. At the beginning of the 20th century, New York entered the skyscraper age. New technologies made taller buildings possible. Steel frames, elevators, electricity, and new construction techniques transformed Manhattan's skyline. Buildings began rising higher and higher. Lower Manhattan became a financial powerhouse. Midtown developed into a center of business, entertainment, and transportation. Broadway became famous around the world. Times Square transformed into one of the busiest entertainment districts on Earth. And New York's subway system connected neighborhoods across the growing metropolis. The city was no longer simply a port. It had become a financial, industrial, cultural, and transportation capital. Chapter 7: The 20th Century. New York continued changing throughout the 20th century. Millions of immigrants and their descendants shaped the city's neighborhoods. Food, music, language, art, and culture. Harlem became a major center of African American culture during the Harlem Renaissance. Wall Street became synonymous with global finance. Broadway became a global symbol of theater. Museums, universities, newspapers, radio, television, and later film helped spread New York's influence around the world. But the city also experienced difficult decades. After World War II, industries declined, suburbanization increased, and New York faced serious financial problems in the 1970s. Crime and economic uncertainty damaged the city's image. Yet New York adapted. The city began a major transformation. By the 1980s and 1990s, investment returned. New neighborhoods were revitalized. New immigrants arrived from Latin America, Asia, Africa, the Caribbean, and other parts of the world. The city became even more diverse. New York today. Today, New York City is one of the world's most influential metropolitan areas. Its 5 boroughs, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island, form a city unlike almost anywhere else. The skyline is filled with skyscrapers. The streets are connected by an enormous subway network. The harbor is surrounded by bridges, towers, parks, neighborhoods, and historic landmarks. From Wall Street to Times Square, from Central Park to Brooklyn, from Harlem to Queens, every part of New York tells a different story. And perhaps the most remarkable part of New York's evolution is that the city never truly stopped changing. The forest became a trading settlement. The trading settlement became a colonial city. The colonial city became an industrial powerhouse. The industrial powerhouse became a financial and cultural capital. And the financial and cultural capital became a truly global city.